इस साल की जो रैंकिंग दी गई है उसमें पिछले वर्ष की 130 नंबर रैंकिंग से हम लोग 30 स्थान आगे आकर 100 नंबर पर आए हैं. सो द जंप दैट इंडिया हैज मेड दिस ईयर is a 30-point jump, which is the highest jump that any country has made in the doing business rankings itself. और ये हिंदुस्तान के लिए बहुत सिग्निफिकेंट इसलिए है कि हम लोग पिछले 3-4 साल से विशेष प्रयास कर रहे हैं कि जो 10 क्राइटेरिया हैं उनमें हर क्राइटेरिया के ऊपर हम लोग सुधार करने का प्रयास करें ताकि व्यवसाय बिजनेस करना हिंदुस्तान के अंदर सरल हो जाए. इसका मूल्यांकन इतना कठिन होता है कि कई बार आप लोगों ने रिफॉर्म्स हमने कर भी लिए लेकिन उसका पूरा क्रेडिट अभी मिलता नहीं है जब तक उसका असर जमीन के ऊपर नहीं दिखता. और 1 जून हर साल की उसके लिए वो कट ऑफ मानते हैं कि 1 जून से पहले वो क्राइटेरिया स्पष्ट सामने आना चाहिए. इस साल कुछ विशेष पहलू हैं. उन्होंने कुछ देशों के नाम लिए हैं जहां स्ट्रक्चरल रिफॉर्म्स हुए हैं. ऐसे 10 देशों के नाम लिए हैं. बाकी देश बहुत छोटे हैं. उनमें मेजर बड़े देशों में से केवल हिंदुस्तान का नाम लिया है कि इंडिया इज वन कंट्री विच हैज बीन अंडरटेकिंग स्ट्रक्चरल रिफॉर्म्स दिस ईयर.
Well, that was our finance minister who had a press conference at 7:30 this evening to announce the fact that India has moved up 30 places in the ease of doing business rating that was announced by the World Bank today. This means that India has improved. Out of 189 countries, India used to be at 130. It is now at 100. It's entered the top 100, which is perhaps the fastest or the best move for any country to have ever made in the course of 1 year. This would mean that doing business in India is much easier this year than it was last year. I want to give you an example of what it used to be like. It was 142, 131, 130, and now we are at 100. So that's quite a drastic move. If this is true, the question we must ask ourselves as citizens right now, all of the other complaining that we have been hearing about GST being too complicated, people losing their jobs, startups having to shut down, was that exaggerated? Because this is data coming out of the World Bank. This is not an Indian agency. This is the World Bank who's giving us data telling us that India has improved drastically in the ease of doing business. The other thing we must remember is that when investors overseas decide whether to put their money in a country, they look at this rating very carefully. So this improves India's rating. The other thing you must know as viewers, and this you won't see on the front page of most of your papers, is that this rating is done using Delhi and Mumbai alone. The rest of the country is not taken into consideration while reviewing this rating. And the rating had a cut-off measure of June. It does not take into account what happened in this country July onwards. Remember, on the 1st of July, GST was introduced. So this rating exclusively is before GST and not after. So this is Mumbai, Delhi and pre-GST. I want to introduce my guests on the show, but I also want you to call in if you have either a question for anybody or if you believe that this rating is a good thing or a bad thing, because we want to understand from our viewers what you really feel, if this is a reason for us to celebrate. Mohan Guruswamy is a very respected economist. He was the advisor to the former Finance Minister Yashwant Sinha. Mr. Guruswamy, I must point out to you that every time you give us time on the urban debate, we get phone calls from our viewers who appreciate your very clear comments on matters. So I'm glad you have come back onto the show. Sanjay Jha of the Congress Party, Arvind Gupta is the leader at the BJP, Survo Kamal Datta is an economist as well. Viren Shah is the president of the Federation of Retail Traders Welfare Association. Pratap Chandan is the treasurer of the Gujarat Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and he's also the chairperson of the Federation of the Gujarat State Edible Oil Merchants Association. K.E. Raghunathan is the national president of the All India Manufacturers Organization. I welcome all of you, gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us. Opening statements from everyone. I'm going to start with Mohan Guruswamy. Mohan Guruswamy, big announcement there by the finance minister saying everything is better, that we've moved 30 places. 30 places is a massive move. So I want to understand, all of the other complaining that we heard, was that exaggeration?
Faye, you must understand what this ease of business, doing business index is. It has 10 elements to it, 10 factors, and out of which India has improved in 4, and 6 we are still where we are or even below where we were last year. Now you have improved so much in some sectors that it gives a skewed balance. You moved up from 131 to 100 because in some sectors we didn't have any reforms in place and you introduced it. Now you spoke about GST. GST makes registration for tax purposes very easy. It takes a couple of days. But does it allay the confusion? You've got confusion behind. The reason is not because you can't register for GST soon, but because there's confusion. So we've got to look at this a little carefully. Now, in a project, when you're setting up a project, we have something called the critical path, which is the path which will take the longest time. What happens in a project typically is that so the day you start your project to acquiring the land and putting the building in place is the longest path. Now, that has not reduced. It takes 123 days to get a registration done. Building construction plans done, or registration done. And it's in Pakistan, it's 18 days. Only country worse than us is Mauritania. So you might have increased in all other parameters, but if it takes that much time to get a registration done, you're in bad trouble. If you have a dispute with a vendor or with anybody, it takes an average of 1,445 days to resolve it. So how does it change the situation? You might have improved in certain parameters, and congratulations for that. You introduced some things which were not there before. Very good for that. But if this survey is done only in Bombay and Delhi, the rest of the country, things are pretty bad. In Bombay, it's always easier to do business because people have a lot of experience in business there. Government officials know how to get business, and businessmen know how to get business done. Registration today becomes impossible. Buying of land is still impossible. Now, these are things we have to consider rather than say that, we've done a great job. Ease of doing business, even if business is very tough to do, you will attract investment if the climate for investment is there, if the objective conditions for growth are there, and the economy is growing. The reason why we are not getting enough growth is not because the ease of business is not good, but because the overall investment climate is depressing. You expect a return on your investment. That doesn't look good. So I think we should take this with a pinch of salt. Government, of course, typically the politicians, they will jump and say, we've scored a century out here. Great, you scored a century, Keep doing it again and again. But this is not going to solve your problems. Your problems is to get your investment up. Your problem is to get more industries up. Problem is to create more jobs. You need not have an industry to create jobs. You can build more canals. You can build more roads. So all that has to be up. Overall investment has to go up. Government's investment in capital expenditure is less than 9% of its budget, which means it takes 91 rupees to run the government, and the government spends 9 rupees on you. So that's not a good situation at all. Your ease of doing business can improve, keep changing, but unless that changes, nothing will change.
Right. Let me bring in a different point of view, and this is Survo Kamal Datta, who's an economist. Mr. Datta, I understand you have a different point of view on this. Do you disagree with Mr. Guruswamy?
No, I don't disagree totally with Mr. Guruswamy. I do acknowledge certain views and certain points of his at a partial way.
How nice of you.
But it doesn't mean that everything is so bad in our country, and it doesn't mean that everything is going for the worse in our country. Yes, India is a very complex country. There is a lot of social and political and economic dynamics and which are intertwined with each other, and it takes in a hell lot of a job and Herculean tasks to mend everything in a proper way and in a proper direction. 65 years of lack of coordinated effort, and because of lack of governance and policy paralysis has actually brought India to a kind of a sham. And to take India out from that sham itself is a Herculean task. And I think if the government has initiated, or if the thinkers in the paradigm of policy making and in economic restructuring, if they have thought of certain good ways of mending certain bad things and of like changing certain things which were absolutely wrong, or which was creating a kind of a bottleneck for the world to look into India. Now, if that is changing and if that has changed, then we should welcome that move, and we should actually acknowledge that. Instead of just brushing aside everything, I mean, we should be magnanimous enough, and we should have that good heart to acknowledge things which are improving. Second thing is, like, as you have said, that this survey was done only based on Delhi and Mumbai. I need to cross-check that, and I need to find out whether it was actually done only on the basis of Mumbai and Delhi or not. And if that is so, then the same parameters would apply.
Read the World Bank report then before you comment.
I mean, then in that case, the parameters would be applicable for every country. For every country which has been chosen in this report, and in that case, the commercial capital of that country and the political capital of that country would have been chosen. Then in that case, we should have a systematic kind of a rate of a kind of a rating of all the countries, and we should think on a systematic basis in relation to all the countries. We just can't say that, okay, US is doing very well and UK is doing very well and China is doing very well and India is not doing well based on the same parameters. If they are doing well, then we are also doing well. Let us be magnanimous enough to acknowledge that. We might have different kind of political mindset and we might have different kind of political ideology, but that doesn't mean that if something is happening good for the country, we should just brush that away.
All right. Can Arvind Gupta hear me? Can we bring in Arvind Gupta? Or if he can't hear me right now. Okay, let me go to K. Raghunathan. And I want to point out that we've brought in people who head federations of businessmen here. Mr. Raghunathan is the national president of the All India Manufacturers Organization. Mr. Raghunathan, this global business rank on ease of doing business should be very, very good news to organizations such as yours. Do you think this will bring cheer?
First of all, congratulations to Honorable Prime Minister and Finance Minister for improving the India stand from 130 to 100. Now, having said that, there are a lot of concerns for us. Main concerns are two things. One, this report was done before GST. We wonder what it would have been after GST. Second concern, the 11 indexes in which it is done, namely, if I can quickly list out, starting a business, dealing with construction permits, getting electricity, registering a property, getting credits, protecting minority investors, paying of taxes, trading across borders, enforcing contracts, labor markets, and the resolving of insolvency. If you take these 11 parameters, almost 10 of them does not concern small-scale industry. Today, if you ask a small-scale industrialist exactly 1 year back from now, if you had asked him how is he feeling in doing business, the answer would have been pleasure. If you ask him today, the answer would be pressure. That's the state of the mind of the small-scale industrialist. Improving from 130 to 100 can happen, one, by our own performance or by non-performance of other countries. We cannot take the entire credit ourselves. We really appreciate.
Yes.
In the global perspective, the ranking of India has come up. But in local perspective, the sufferings are remaining.
Okay, let me bring in Arvind Gupta. Arvind Gupta from the BJP. Arvind Gupta, so far Mohan Guruswamy has said we need to take into perspective the fact that, and both Mohan Guruswamy and K. Raghunathan have pointed out that GST is not included in this particular rating, that it only measures Mumbai and Delhi. And the large change that we're seeing is because the bankruptcy code was brought in and because we've brought in some specific measures. What is your response to the fact that this is not perhaps a fully fair assessment of what's happening on the ground?
Let me start by saying that I think India's structural reforms taken by post-2014, remember most of these rankings have a 3-year gestation period, are finally yielding results. And we must congratulate Team India in this really, led by the Prime Minister, the Finance Minister, Commerce Ministry, Niti Aayog, and all the states, because this is the combined ranking of India. And in this, I think India is showing signs to the global world that we are breaking away from years of policy paralysis and moving towards better leadership, common goals, coordination to achieve a better ranking. Now, coming specifically to the rankings that you have commented, I think, sometimes I feel that we have either or world, that either we have to be, X or Y. I think there is an and world. We have improved, and there is a work in progress of many things that we have to continue improving upon. I think if you heard the Finance Minister speaking today, he acknowledged that there is a significant improvement in many things. Are we satisfied with it? No, we have to continue improving. Our target, the first target has been achieved probably of coming into 100. But are we satisfied with this? No, of course, we need to reach the top 50. So this is work in progress. Many things are work in progress. In fact, the impact of going online for many services, doing digital, and in my opinion, GST will be very, very positive in the years to come. So I think we have to take into account the basic underlying reforms that have been taking place, the empowerment of various states, the coordination that is happening in making this happen. So I'm a big believer. India has shown substantial improvement. We were stagnant at about 135, 140 for many years. It's time we are coming closer to our competitors. We are attracting better capital, and this will only go up from here.
Let me bring in all of our other panelists as well. Pratap Chandan in Gujarat. Pratap Chandan, do you believe that doing business in India has improved? If this is true, then we should be able to create more jobs. If this is true, we should not be struggling as much as you said we were struggling the last time, Pratapji.
Yes, first of all, I think India is entering into the top slot of 100 countries in the field of ease of doing business. Is a matter of pride, not only for the country as a whole, but also for the business community. But the main problem will be whether the benefits reach to the grassroots people, say whether they are traders or manufacturers in small sector and medium scale sector. That is more important. So there is a lot of things yet to be done. I think even being in 100 slot is not enough or say satisfactory. India is a fast developing economy in the field of say communication, infrastructure, tax reforms and all that taking into consideration. We should be among at least 30 countries of the world. That should be our target. And if this survey is being done on the basis of Mumbai and Delhi only, then that is also something which demands something a better consideration, that it should be done in small centers also, and then only it can represent the real picture of where the country stands in the field of ease of doing business, I would say.
Viren Shah, President of the Federation of Retail Traders.
Well, this is a very proud moment for India. I should give credit to the Prime Minister for his trips abroad. I should give credit to the Chief Minister of Maharashtra, who went abroad and got a lot of investments. I think those credits should be, they deserve this credit because it's ease of doing business. This is not to be mixed up with minting money in the business, because on the ground reality, the things are not the same. There was a once upon a time, every week during the Diwali time, there was 1 or 2 shops opening in every area. Today is a time where it's a recession. Even in Diwali and the November and December time, we hear shops are closing all over India. The traders are losing business. Traders are getting jobless. More than 4 crore traders in India. Today, after agricultural, our trading communities are giving the highest employment. And as on today, the things are not the same on the ground reality. Maybe it's good for doing ease of business for the people coming from abroad and doing a business because everything is online. It's easy to do business. The ground reality for the Indians who are doing business at the grassroots level, because of a lot of competition, slow in the economy, GST, demonetization, things are really very, very upsetting. Traders are not happy at the ground level. Shops are closing. Many of the shops in many areas are closing. I think it's a warning sign for the traders. And I must say, unless and until GST improves the ease of doing business, the compliance in the GST gets better, things will not improve for the trading community. And it is only good for the people coming from abroad and putting the industries, where I think the higher level, at the Prime Minister's level and the PMO level, there is no corruption, but there is a corruption at the lowest level. Labor laws in Maharashtra, it's not easy to do the business here. So things are not the same as it has been shown, but for surely it is a proud moment and the credit goes to the Prime Minister.
Vinisha, what do you mean when you say there is corruption at the lower levels?
I'm talking about Mumbai, even the Mumbai, the place where if you want to say, if you are getting the goods from transport, there are Mathadi laws are there, the labor laws are there. You can't have your own staff member who can take out the cartons from the trucks, because there are Mathadi Kamdas are there, there are labor unions are there. It's not easy to do a business at the lower level. There is still a corruption at a high end. And I'm telling you, labor laws are the worst especially in Maharashtra. I don't know about other state, but in Maharashtra, to do a business is not that easy.
Okay.
Although online registration, online things are much improved, but the lower level, the trading is not that easy.
Sanjay Jha, opening statements by Sanjay Jha, then I'm opening up the panel to everybody. Sanjay Jha, go ahead.
Faye, I think there is a very apparent paradox here, because while there is no denying that the rankings have improved, end of day, I think everybody's here made very substantive points already, that during the period when the World Bank found that we had apparently liberalized some of the ways by which the regulations governing business were in the past. During the same period, you have a GDP which has been falling successively. You have joblessness rising. In fact, you have now rising inflation as well. And worse, small-scale businesses getting wiped out, a disrupted informal economy, and essentially private investment being terribly sluggish. So what does it mean? It basically tells you that no matter what ranking you have, assuming India was ranked 50 today, that wouldn't change the reality on the ground that the GDP would still be down and would be terribly worried about joblessness. So that's a first point. But I think the one other point I would like to introduce here, Faye, early in the discussion, is that before we live in an economy, we live in a society. And let us not look at any one parameter and begin to judge the health of a nation. For example, to give you an example, compare this at the same time, or juxtapose this with India's falling ranking on the global hunger index. Where do we rank? Where do we rank on the human development index?
Should we disregard every piece of good news because there is also so much bad news? Consider the fact that we've always been between 140 and 130 with, the company of Cambodia, Tanzania and Malawi, Nicaragua, Tajikistan, and now we've moved up to 100 for the first time ever. So is it fair to discard the good news because there's also bad news available in the market right now?
Faye, I'll tell you something. I think it's important not to discard it, but it's very important not to get carried away. Because I think what worries me more than anything else is the fact that when India, by the way, is now ranked with Rwanda and ahead of only Pakistan and behind North Korea and Syria on hunger, which means ordinary people of Indians, very number of people below the poverty line are dying of starvation, then I think that that's a critical problem. Now, ease of doing business, as somebody rightly mentioned, is city-centric on two big cities of India. Nothing wrong with that. But end of day, it's a gargantuan challenge, and it's something that we should not get transported into heaven because of it.
Arvind Gupta of the BJP is going to respond. And then I'm opening up this panel.
One last point.
Yes.
There were 35, Faye, one quick point. There were 35, the World Bank report says, there were 35 reforms started since 2003-04, substantive number of them during the time of the UPA. Maybe some of them have got implemented during the time of the
Oh, come on, Sanjay, you have to either decide if you want to take credit for this or you want to disregard it completely. You can't have it both ways. You can't have, this is a bad thing, but I want to take some credit. Arvind Gupta of the BJP is going to respond. Arvind Gupta. Okay, let's allow Arvind Gupta to respond.
Please credit Mr. Jha, then please credit the Vajpayee government also. You please credit the Vajpayee government also. If you are crediting UPA, then credit Vajpayee government also for that.
I'm just giving you facts.
If you are so magnanimous, then please be magnanimous in relation to the opponents also.
Arvind Gupta.
Absolutely, and you will credit Mr. Narasimha Rao and Mr. Rajiv Gandhi.
Let's go all the way back to the British Raj, shall we now? Okay, we've agreed on that. Arvind Gupta, go on.
On Indira Gandhi.
Arvind Gupta, please.
Yeah, I think I really love the way Sanjay Jha from the Congress spins this. During the consecutive years of the UPA government, where you are seeing the ease of doing business not only falling, either stagnant or falling. Now that it has come up, instead of appreciating that and looking at what India has done well, Mr. Jha wants to spin it with a false report of the Global Hunger Index. The Global Hunger Index has been proven that the 35 countries which were not measured before in the report have been measured for the first time. So there is no comparison right now of that. But having said that, I want to respond to Mr. Jha saying
Arvind, are you proud that India is ranked with Rwanda?
There is attractiveness of a country. No, we are not proud. We are not proud of anything. What I'm saying is false numbers don't count. We have to improve all the rankings, and I'm trying to be very objective here by saying that
it's not a false number.
Arvind Gupta, I want you to also respond to what was said by the traders and the manufacturers, Mr. Raghunath and Mr. Viren Shah, who said it's very, very difficult to run business on the ground. This was also echoed by Pradhat Chandan, who is right now in Ahmedabad. He is the treasurer of the Gujarat Chamber of Commerce and Industry, who says it's very difficult to run business on the ground. For a normal person who runs a small family business, they've been struggling for the last 6 months. What's your response to that?
See, there are two things. First of all, let me also add, while this is the survey results are comparable from all countries, there's the commercial capital and the political capital, so it's always comparing oranges with oranges. It also only looks at small and medium businesses. The survey data, the research data is only for small and medium businesses, so that the comparisons across the world are same. Having said this, there is a new normal being set, and we hear what all the traders have been saying. The GST councils have been meeting and revising whatever can be done best. But there is a new law that has come into play, and it is something that everybody is getting used to. So there is a time that it takes to settle in. And I mean, I always assure the trading community, the business community, that it does take some time, and whatever inputs are being provided to the GST Council, I think they are trying to act more agile and take remedial steps. So, having said this, the report by itself has to be, you know, one thing that gets missed is that India is now performing one of the best performing countries in terms of the ranks it has jumped in, and this is a very important factor. We are closing in on our closest competitors, the other economies that we often get compared to, and I think China is at 78, we are at about 100. So these are very important measurements, and while that's how allocation of money is done globally, and people look at it, these reports very seriously when they allocate money to a country.
Okay, let me bring in, I saw K. Raghunathan with his hand up, National President of All India Manufacturers Association. Mr. Raghunathan, go ahead.
Yeah, Faye, one important aspect of this finding was the paying taxes was the maximum improvement in the index. Collection of taxes. What does it mean? The cow has been milked more irrespective of the healthiness of the cow. This is really concerning. As we last debated on this GST, there has been more sucking of the blood of the industries than what could have been healthily given. Yeah. The second aspect, which we are largely concerned today, is tax terrorism. Yeah. In the last 1 year, we have witnessed as a trade body that whenever we have a problem faced due to the policy, the government keeps a closed ears. We are worried with these kind of ranking improvements, will this become more rigid that just to say what I do is right, I don't care what you say. That attitude will not do good for the industries. We are just presenting where small scale industries are. I think it is better we come up with a list of indexes for ease of doing businesses among small scale industries within India and start rating it every 3 months with trade bodies and get their own real-time opinion across the country in Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3.
My question to you is this. If you were to right now rate ease of doing business for manufacturers across the country, whom you represent on this panel, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best, 0 being the worst, where would you place us right now?
For small scale industries, I'll place it at 2. For large scale industries, I'll place it at 5. For foreign companies doing business in India, I will place it at 7.
And when you say, and you said that the government closes its ears to you, as an organization, have you approached the government? Because Mr. Arvind Gupta just said that GST will settle down, give it time, we're working on it. So are you telling us that the government, you're worried that this rating will result in the government turning your suggestions away?
We fear so. We fear so. The general attitude is take it or leave it. And I think that will become more reinforced because such endorsements of their credits should not get into their heads. This is our feeling.
Arvind Gupta?
No, I think, yeah, I just want to assure that, you know, the government has never taken that attitude. It's worked, there is a long road ahead and where we need everybody to participate. And it's an era of cooperative federalism. And in this, I think every voice, everything counts, and all constructive criticism also counts. So in that, with that spirit, if there is something that we need to change, I think the government is ever willing to listen and does listen. And you know, it's shown agility in many areas, and it will continue to do that.
But is that true? Pratap Chauhan, has the government listened so far to you?
Thank you.
Yes, government is listening. I won't say that government is turning a deaf ear to the problems, but One of my panelists just mentioned about GST. GST could be the game changer even in the field of ease of doing business, because it involves abolition of checkposts, say formalities like C forms, and it is a reformed system of tax collecting. But the implementation part, so far as the implementation part is concerned, there are still so many lacunas. So it is better to be taken care of that so many things, e-way, say RCM and e-way bill, such provisions might act against the spirit of ease of doing business. Well, there is no denying the fact that there are so many spheres where ease of doing business is visible by way of better communication, by way of better infrastructure facilities, road transport facilities, and say IT scrutiny is also being done online, and better administration by way of computerization and all that. There are so many spheres there, it is visible, but so many things yet to be done.
So many things yet to be done, and I can see Surbo Kamal Datta with his hand up. Surbo Kamal Datta, go ahead.
See, we need to understand as to how do you come to the conclusion of ease of doing business. For doing better business, or for the ease of doing business, you need to have in certain parameters in a very clear-cut way. First is like the political structure of the country has to be very strong, it has to be very good, and it has to be solid. Second is like in relation to corruption and in relation to policy paralysis, there has to be a healthy environment so that investors, they do not turn away while thinking of investing in a particular economy or in a country. Third is like you should have proper financial structural reforms, and the second generation, third generation reforms needs to be implemented, and it needs to be implemented within a time frame. These are the some of the basic things at which any investor looks in, whether it's a domestic investor, a domestic private investor, or an international investor. And only if he finds it to be conducive, then only he or she goes in for investment in that country. Now, if you have to look into the case of India, in the last 3 years or so, several initiatives have been taken in that direction, and probably that is what is reflecting, and that is what is attracting people from across the globe to come over here in India and to do in business. One gentleman had spoken about in relation to milking the cow maximum for tax. I would say that it is not milking the cow maximum for tax collection. It is actually the other way around. People and those companies who were corrupt and who were not within the tax structure or who were not paying their taxes, they have come within the tax ambit now. So that is again a good thing to look into. And if you look at the, and if just one more thing I want to add up.
To be fair, the gentleman on our panel,
just 10 seconds.
Represent businessmen.
Like one more thing which I want to add up out here is like, I mean, we should be happy enough that India is the only country from South Asia which has gone up in this index, and it is the only country from BRICS which has gone up in that index. So let us be magnanimous enough to acknowledge certain things if that are happening, if those things are happening in the right direction.
Right. And I want to point out to you, Surbo Kamal Datta, if you're saying that the only reason why people are finding it difficult is because these people don't pay tax and now they're required to, the gentlemen on the panel represent businessmen, traders, manufacturers across the country. Mohan Guruswamy, there are, like you said, paying taxes, trading across, paying taxes, enforcing contracts, and resolving insolvency we've done really well at. And I'm looking at the parameters. But getting electricity is worse, registering property is worse, dealing with construction permits is barely any better. There are several, parameters that we haven't...
Shutting down a business is easier.
Yes, but I want to understand this, Mr. Guruswamy, if you consider the fact that this measure goes from July to June, which means that the next year we'll consider GST, what do you think the ranking will be then?
Well, I don't know if the ranking will change. It'll change, it'll be better because, is always trying to do better. It could go up, I'll be glad if it goes up. But you see, this is not a parameter which is a make or break parameter, this ease of doing business. Now, this gentleman who spoke before me spoke about huge amounts of foreign investment coming. The fact is that there's more Indian money which goes out every year than comes in. We had net remitter of $18 billion of foreign currency in investments abroad. That's the fact. Obviously, it's easier to do business outside and Indian money is going out to do business. Right. And Ratan Tata once famously said, if you know that Tatas are more invested outside, because it's difficult to do business in India. Now, it's difficult to do in India business in India for so many reasons. One is that the market itself is not so mature. And you know, you need good markets. China was a very difficult place to do business when it opened up. But foreigners poured in because the market was huge. And you know, the attitude was that you can exploit the market, come and exploit the market. And the export-driven machine that China created was entirely because of foreign investment. Now, in India, we don't have that that export orientation, and you know that the need we earn money out, have export oriented. You can't have an industrial estate anymore because you've got all these land bills, which all these politicians have contrived to make purchase of land impossible, large tracts of land impossible. So, you know, we have all these problems. These have to be sorted out. The economy improves, potential in the economy improves, then investments will come in spite of difficulty. You know, people, when they went to Africa, the colonials went, there was malaria, there was cholera, typhoid, everything. But they went because the opportunities were big. So you can do the same for India. You know, you don't really have to focus on the ease of doing business. You know, it reminds me of Economic Freedom Index, which is something like this, where the Fraser Institute gives it, and the ease of doing the Economic Freedom Index gives Saudi Arabia a higher rank than India. So you have all kinds of things, you know. So it's not like my friend Jha said that the hunger index matters. We have fallen actually from 97 out of 116 to 100 out of 116. That's not going to be good to attract business. That kind of image scares people up. You got to do better there also. So its overall atmosphere changes. Things look better. People go to China because they see changes, they see lots of improvement, there's a lot of development, lots of construction, and they want to be a part of it. In India, you don't see that. You know, you don't get that feeling as yet. And you know, maybe I hope Mr. Modi succeeds. I hope Mr. Modi pushes more. I hope he stays more in the country and focuses on reforms. Because you know, in the 10 years of policy paralysis we had, GDP kept growing. It grew at 7.8% for the 10-year period. Now in this period of, you know, policy action, GDP has fallen down to 5%.
Right.
So, you know, got to weigh things a little more carefully here. Before coming to conclusion that, you know, everything is hunky-dory here.
Arvind Gupta, I want you to respond to that, and also I have a couple of questions for you.
I need to leave.
Yeah, Arvind Gupta, my question to you is, it's undeniable that we have a job crisis in the country right now. If we talk about starting businesses and running businesses, $1.4 billion worth of startups. So startups that had raised $1.4 billion from VCs have wrapped up in the last 1 year. They've closed shop. That money will not be returned to those investors. In this scenario, and our GDP is falling, in this scenario, are we still convinced that our economy is doing well?
Faye, I speak with a lot of experience in the startup industry. I think more risk capital that you put in startups, it's better. The capital is called risk capital. Startups closing down is a law of nature. 10% startups survive, that's a very, very high number. 3 to 4% do it average anywhere in the world. So I think that's the nature of the startup business. By saying that 1.4 billion worth of capital has been destroyed, ask the same venture capitalists how much more money they have made on certain exits or how much nominal values has increased on other startups that they've invested in. A VC factors in 1 out of 10 investment goes good, they make their money. So I think that's a wrong comparison. The point I want to make, the larger point I want to make, and the last point before I leave this panel is that ease of doing business is one parameter. Everybody recognizes that. The attractiveness of the country, the political stability, the commitment to reforms, and of course, the economic viability of doing, coming to a country all matter. And I think they all need to converge. And everybody is cognizant of that. This is just one of the inputs for the economy to do better. And all steps are being taken. But today we are here to debate ease of doing business. And in that parameters, we have done well. And we should acknowledge that and move ahead and work towards even coming into the top 50 in the next 2 years.
Thank you. Sanjay Jha.
Faye, very short point. I can tell you from my banking experience that even if your ease of doing business is not so good, foreign investment usually looks around for a rate of return, and they look for a rate of return. If they find it's attractive, they will take the political risk, they will evaluate all the criteria and put the money in. But remember that ease of doing business is also, if it's going to be attractive only for the foreign sector, then you're also equally susceptible, because tomorrow if the Fed increases the interest rate, there will be a massive outflow of foreign exchange, no matter how good your ease of doing business. Therefore, I think some gentleman correctly pointed out that the basic focus of the government ought to be on really strengthening the micro, small and the medium businesses, because they are the ones, by the way, who are not necessarily in Mumbai and Delhi. They are the ones who suffer on account of corruption, bureaucracy, red tapeism. And therefore, I think we need to really treat it in dichotomy. I think at the moment what we are doing is we are actually feeding sugar to the sugar daddy, when end of day the core of Indian business is really the small entrepreneurial businesses. And are we ignoring them? That, I think, is the challenge for the government to look at.
I want to bring in Viren Shah, because Viren Shah works out of Mumbai, and Viren Shah represents an entire traders association. Would you agree that the small traders are being ignored by the government, and it's only the large traders that are, or the large businessmen who get written about in the business newspapers and are, profiled on the business channels from CII and FICCI, that are the ones that are being, paid heed to, or the ones that the government is actually paying attention to? Because at the end of the day, the truth is this: people watching at home right now have jobs, they have family members who depend on businesses, and they want to know, does this mean our economy is going to do better? Does this mean we're going to get more jobs? Does this mean that our family members who run businesses are going to do well? Viren Shah, what's the answer to that question?
I completely agree. Since last many years, not in this government, earlier government also, there was no place for the Small Traders Association. They never call us, they never take us into confidence, they never take our any suggestions. It's always happening. We've been always treated like a stepmotherly treatment. When it comes to voting, they always takes our support, our shoulder, and wins the election. But when it comes to asking for suggestions, taking our suggestions, there is completely a zero inputs from our side. Always been taken. There is no inputs for taken. But I want to take one point here, is that this ease of businesses, Mumbai and Delhi, I want to talk about, say, Gujarat and the Kutch, especially Kutch, where a lot of my Kutchi community comes from. We have a lot of small traders in Kutch, Rajkot and Bachau and Bhuj area. If anybody wants to do a business, or anyone wants to open a store or a shop or a provision store, to get a power is the most corrupt offices over there. You have to every day walk onto their office, you don't get power. So ease of business is only in the urban areas. When it comes to small villages, small towns, there is ease of business is not there. It's only corruption, only money works, you pay and you get your job done. And this is where our problems in India, where most of the smaller towns and the villages, traders are having problems.
Is that true, Pratap Chandan?
Even the businessmen starting a business, they have to go to the red tapeism.
Pratap Chandan, is that true?
Yes, looking from the viewpoint of a common and average businessman, I would say that ease of doing business is governed by two parameters. One is corruption at the lower level. That is to be taken care of. And another is the policy of the administration. It should be common man friendly. So avoidance of red tapeism. I think Mr. Viren Shah also means that when he's talking about connection of electricity and small towns and all that. So taking care of corruption at lower level and avoiding the red tapeism and taxpayers friendly attitude of the administration these are the major parameters. These two are the major parameters that matter so far as the average businessman is concerned.
All right, we've run out of time on this conversation, and we've run out of politicians because both Sanjay Jha and Arvind Gupta have left the conversation. But what we've established is this: while it is a moment of applause that India has in fact moved up 30 places, we've never moved up this much this quickly before, we must remember that this rating does not include GST and what happened after that. It actually, the cutoff for this rating is June. GST was introduced on the 1st of July. Also, this is a rating that only measures Mumbai and Delhi and does not consider the rest of the country. The truth is, as we're being repeatedly told by those who represent the manufacturers, the traders, and the industry, small industry across the country, small industry is struggling. Traders are struggling, people are losing their jobs, and there is widespread job loss in our country. This is something the government needs to look at a war footing. And GST and the implementation of GST is something the government needs to look at a war footing as well. But in the meantime, this will help us perhaps, if we're lucky, in attract investment from overseas and maybe create more jobs, because that's what we need to do right now. Because we are not a country of Mumbai and Delhi. We are not a country of big business. We are a country of small businesses that form the very backbone of this country, small run family businesses in all of our cities and our towns. The government needs to pay attention to smaller businesses.